It's full time.
Well, it was a long time coming, but footy's restart was certainly worth the wait. Some tense matches to complete round two, and we'll dissect all of them here on Full Time, brought to you by AIA Vitality. I'm Ayrton, Woolley, joined tonight by Hawthorn champion Brownlow medalist Shane Crawford. Shane, great to have some footy back.
Ayrton, great to have footy back. I'm a bit disappointed with this set, though, because I thought we were just going to be sitting on a couch in our boxer shorts talking about the footy. I've got my notes, we're ready to go, and it's all about just giving everyone a little bit of football on a Sunday night.
Well, already footy has had a different look. On the couch would have been certainly a different look, you in your boxer shorts. But today it was Essendon and North Melbourne, a new first for both of those clubs. They shared a flight to Sydney. Of course, under those new COVID rules, they still got the job done.
Yes, so no excuses for any travelling teams from now on. North Melbourne, there they are, and the Essendon players this morning up nice and early. They went up and they both treated it like a business trip, got the job done, got the 4 points, great victories. Obviously, the Swans not getting up over the Bombers, and also North Melbourne, a wonderful win against the Giants.
We can see the scores there. Essendon flew out of the box, 5 goals in the first quarter. They were challenged late by the Swans.
They were. Essendon, Stringer kicked 3. We have McKernan kicked 3. Zach Merritt was on fire. But, when you think about it, you need players to really stand up, especially players that haven't had much of an input throughout the game. You just need some kind of contribution, and that's a sign of a good young player coming through. And we're going to talk about Darcy Parish. He stood up when he had to in that last quarter, 13 possessions. He was very, very influential, and probably the reason Essendon were able to get across the line. The
match-winning goal too from Darcy Parish, so certainly put his stamp on that final quarter in the Bombers' victory. We'll head now into their camp. They've just boarded the bus heading back to Melbourne. We spoke with Tom Bell-Chambers about his delight on the victory.
Yeah, it is, mate. We've had a bit of time away from football, so to come up here and get a hard-fought win against Sydney, who are a really good team. We haven't won up here for a long time, so to get the win's really pleasing. Yeah, to be honest, it hasn't really fazed us too much. We were up pretty early on the plane and up here, and it was just really business as usual. I actually didn't mind the fly up on the same day and get on with the game, and back to Melbourne straight away. It was good. Yeah, we knew we need to win the ball around the footy and get the ball forward. We knew that our forwards were competing really well down there, so if we got the ball down there and gave them an opportunity to compete, we thought we'd be in with a really good chance, and we were able to do that. Not exactly sure what the coach said to him, but Darcy's had a really strong kind of pre-season, and the last 6 weeks that we've been training, or last month that we've been training, he's trained really well. So for Darcy to come out there in the last quarter and play the way he did was really pleasing, and he's a little go-getter. Darcy did really well for us.
That was your question there, Crawf, to Tom Bell-Chambers to finish on Darcy Parish. But the Bombers now 2 wins up to second, and the coach, John Worsfold, no doubt happy with that performance today.
Whether you'd always like to get off to a good start, but it doesn't mean that's how the game's going to play out. We've seen that with other games over the weekend as well. So obviously early on we saw some really good signs the way we wanted to play, and then it got tight and tough, and I thought we defended pretty well when Sydney really came at us in that second quarter. We held on until that last minute. But then we reset ourselves at half-time and got back to playing our style of footy that we've been working on. Look, yeah, it was tight, but we were really confident the players knew how to execute what we wanted them to in that last few minutes. They were really composed when we had the chance to go inside 50 and get the shot at goal, and then defended pretty strongly in that last 30 seconds.
Yeah, the start wasn't anywhere near what we wanted to, and they jumped out of the blocks and got off to when you're 20 points down at quarter time, and then you sort of get yourself back into the game, and once we sort of evened up the competing side of it in the second quarter, then it became a little bit more technical. But we're just inconsistent at a number of things during the course of the game. You look at one thing and you get that right, and we sort of focus on something else because it was just falling down somewhere else. So it just wasn't as consistent as what we wanted it to be.
Well, John Longmire there naturally flat with the result, but there were still some positive signs for Sydney. Of course, no Buddy Franklin. Yeah, no Buddy, but Sydney are always very competitive. Lewis Taylor kicking 3, which is good, and also Tom Papley. But they only had 6 goal kickers, and that's a real worry. You need midfielders kicking goals if you're going to be a good, consistent side. So they've got to ask more from the midfielders. They've got to get themselves on the scoreboard. Otherwise, it's going to be a worry throughout the year. Well, hitting the scoreboard was certainly a challenge in the other match earlier today. It was GWS up against North Melbourne. Just 2 goals apiece to half-time. It did open up from there, North Melbourne kicking away in the final quarter, Crawf.
North Melbourne were awesome. They really were. They come to play. They had great pressure, a lot of contested footy, and there they are singing the song after the game. It was just a really, really good win. And when you look at it, they're up near the top of the ladder, the Kangaroos. You know, it was just thoroughly deserved. They outworked GWS. GWS are okay. They come to play, but they just outworked them, Ayrton.
One man who was central to that performance was Cam Zurhaar. He kicked 3 goals. He's got a bit of swagger about him, Crawf, and you caught up with him a short time ago.
Yeah, it was a great start for the boys and exactly what we needed to start a campaign again. So we just fought hard all day, and I thought we were just really good.
Yeah, you played with great spirit. You had contributors all across the field. Now, your coach, Reece Shaw, and he put you on his shore. So no doubt he would have given you some great inside information about how to attack him and how to get yourself into the game. Kicked 3 goals, had a very good game yourself.
Yeah, he didn't give me any advice, that's for sure. But he said he might chirp a fair bit. But no, he wasn't too chirpy today, I'll tell you that.
Jai Simpkin, awesome young player. Tarrant Thomas. There's some great young kids, including yourself, coming through. So very exciting times for the Kangaroos.
Yeah, the young boys were unreal today, and they were just Jai and Tarrant and even Curtis and Kyron Hayden coming back from an injury. They were just all played their role today, and that's exactly what we needed to get the win done. And it was great from the young boys, and the old boys led the way, obviously.
And there's a lot of talk about flying interstate in the morning. It virtually gives you a bit of an excuse. Everyone says, oh, well, that's very tough. But it was business-like. So you got up nice and early. You flew from Melbourne down to Sydney or up to Sydney, played, put on a great performance, and now you're heading back. You're at the airport right now.
Yeah, so, up at 5:30. But internally, mate, it was just another game. We don't take excuses like that, and we just came out and we played the way we wanted to play and got the job done. So it was just a great team effort all over.
The Zurhaar has gone global because Pat McAfee, who hosts a show in America, he was tweeting about you. He was saying, I love the mullet man. I love the mullet man.
I haven't seen that, but I just started growing up my mullet, so I'm pretty happy with it at the moment, actually, to be honest. And I think Jasper's is pretty good at it as well, but I think I'll keep mine normal hair colour.
No, awesome. Sean Higgins as well, De Boer following him around, but he put on a bit of a clinic himself, so which is very tough to do when you got someone following you around all day.
Yeah, him and Goldie and Cunners as well, getting tagged as well. They're absolutely incredible all day, and they led the way for us forwards and defenders as well. Just the amount of pressure that they applied the whole day, and that's how we won the game, obviously.
Well, he's certainly a character, Cam Zurhaar, fresh from his 3-goal performance there. Crawf, anything else from that match particularly that you saw?
I love the mullet. I'd love you to have a bit of a mullet. I think Higgins and De Boer, I think the really important thing out of all that, De Boer attacked the footy a fair bit. I reckon you just got to know your role. Like, he's a wonderful shutdown player, but I just think at times he was trying to get the footy too much. And Sean Higgins, just a super player. To be able to get, 28 touches on someone who's a pretty negating sort of run-with type, he just shows his class. He's a super player. And North Melbourne, watch out for North Melbourne. Definitely going to be right there towards the end of the year if they can keep that consistency going through and the improvement with the young kids.
We certainly know what you're going to get from them under Reece Shaw. This was his reaction post-match.
Probably the most exciting part of that victory was the evenness of the play from our players and the way we were team first, and the way we organised, both on defence and offence, and how we went about it at the contest was exceptional. So there was a bit in it, but I think the team effort was probably the best thing to come out of that. I didn't really say too much, really. It was just continue to do what you've been doing, lads. We're a pretty basic team that really fights for each other, and the way the boys just smacked in and played to our identity was really pleasing, and I just asked for another quarter of it, and the boys really obliged.
You know, we just did not roll our sleeves up and get down and get dirty for long enough, and clearly they did. We're playing in Friday, 5 days time against the Bulldogs down there in Melbourne. So we need to find some answers pretty quick, because if you sort of serve up that again, then you'll be sitting there saying the same thing.
Well, looking elsewhere now, your 4 points of round 2, Crawf, and certainly no shortage of talking points.
Matt Rowell for me, number one. What a superstar he is. He's an absolute bull, a blue-collar worker. He had 26 possessions, 2 goals. He was lining up against Shuey, Kelly, Yo, some of the best midfielders in the game. And you know what? They tried to give him a hard time, and he just took it on. I'll tell you what, we found a player to watch, and a player we love, love the way they go about it. But if you look at some of his footage, he attacks the footy, he keeps himself in the contest, and then he goes and follows the football and works both ways. It was just fantastic to watch, and what a number 1 pick for the Gold Coast.
Well, I know why you mentioned that. You going through in the pre-show, you reckon it was the second best game since a certain bloke back in, what, 93, wasn't it?
No, I know you're going to say me when I kicked 5 in my second game. I don't want to talk about me, but it was a very good second game a long, long time ago.
Well, you certainly seemed quite happy before the show anyway, but let's get on with your 4 points. We'll go point number 2 now.
Point number 2 is the Crows in the showdown. The season's on the line next week for the Adelaide Crows. They're going to play the Gold Coast up there. And what they've delivered so far is not good enough. They lost to the Swans at home by a couple of points. And then what they dished up on the weekend was very, very disappointing. Lacked contested footy and heart, which, you know, you don't normally don't normally think about Adelaide in that way. So a lot of soul searching. Season's on the line and not good enough.
A huge early test for Matthew Nicks. They now head up to their Gold Coast hub along with Port Adelaide after that match. But you've also got a message for the AFL. Yeah, the AFL need to lift. And this is why. Get it? Lifting. Well, the milestones, we love players being chaired off. And we saw on the weekend we had Neville Jetta for Melbourne. We had Dangerfield, Pittard and Tarrant for North Melbourne today. In a few weeks' time, we're going to have Gary Ablett, one of the all-time greats. You know, some would argue one of the best players to have ever played the game. 350. On the same game, it's going to be Joel Selwood's 300th game. These two are absolute ornaments to the game. They really are, and I want them chaired off. I want the AFL to change the rules. We're allowed to tackle, we're allowed to hug, we're allowed to, you know, get around the opposition and harass. Surely we can lift our teammates and carry them off, especially those two who thoroughly deserved all the plaudits we can possibly give them, because they've been wonderful for the game. Question without notice. Who would you be going for first to chair off? Gaz or Joel? Oh, yeah. We'll let them fight it out, and whoever's standing, we'll carry them off first. I've thrown you under the bus there, sorry about that, Crawf. The other point that you've been keen to make... Oh, no. Here we go. Now, we saw last week on one of your many media appearances, you made a big prediction in regards to the Thursday night match between Richmond and Collingwood. Yeah, a lot of people have been calling me Nostradamus because the Collingwood-Richmond match, I had no idea who was going to win, so I said, I think it might be a draw. So I just threw that up, and guess what? It was a draw. But I must admit, I've got a lot of games wrong. We're going to go and have a look right now at what we've thrown up.
It's the blockbuster Collingwood-Richmond to get it back underway. You tip Thursday night?
This is going to be a ripper. I think these two sides can meet in a grand final. I really think it's a flip of the coin. I don't really have a prediction as we speak. I think Collingwood's form was red hot in round 1 and Richmond were pretty good as well. So I think this could... I'm tipping a draw. There you go. I'm tipping a draw. Mate, nailed it. Hey, I know it's not about me, but can I just say I predicted Melbourne to win the flag last year. I tipped the Hawks in an upset against the Cats on the weekend. So, yes, we get it wrong, but every now and then we might get something right. Tipped the draw and didn't back it either, which is a big mistake. But let's head now to your Sunday roast, a weekly segment we'll be having from here on in. Yeah, well, I've got the Hawks in the gun in the Sunday roast. Also, the West Coast Eagles and the Adelaide Crows. The Hawks, after half-time... They just put up the white flag. It's just very unlike them. I thought they were pretty good to half-time, but they're not going to enjoy the review with Alistair Clarkson on Monday. I'm sure he's going to rip in. And there was a lot of hard evidence there on the tape, which a lot of players are going to be ducking in those team meetings. The West Coast, you know, they're okay early, but then they just dropped away. They got totally outworked by the Gold Coast. And Adelaide, well, what do you do with Adelaide? The season's on the line. They've got to find a way to get themselves into the match. Rory Sloane's now out, or possibly going to be out. That's massive. So they've got to find a way, get the spirit back. So all three sides, Adelaide, West Coast and Hawthorn, in the gun this week for me.
Interesting, you put Hawthorn in the gun week one, Crawf for the show, but see how that plays out over the coming weeks. You touched on West Coast there. It doesn't get much easier for them this week. They've got Brisbane, and they're likely to be without Jeremy McGovern. He's been handed a one-match ban, this vision supplied by the AFL tonight, for striking Alex Sexton from the Gold Coast.
Yeah, and such a key player for them too. So when you look at those games, West Coast have got Brisbane, which is going to be tough. You've got Hawthorn taking on Richmond, so that's going to be extremely tough. And then you've got Adelaide taking on Gold Coast, so a young side starting to believe in themselves. So footy puts a lot of clubs and a lot of people under enormous pressure, and those three teams need to lift.
Well, before we get on to the final game, I get the sense that you think there's going to be a response from Hawthorn.
Oh, I think so, yeah. I thought their first half was okay, but I reckon they just would have been extremely disappointed. No excuses. Even though it's round two and you had a lot of time off, there's no excuses. Look at what North Melbourne did today. It was awesome to watch. Essendon, fantastic. Gold Coast, you know, found a way to win and beat a very good side. So there's no excuses. Got to produce every week. Otherwise, we're going to put you in the gun and come after you.
Well, the other club that might just be in the gun after tonight, it's unfolding as we speak. It's the Western Bulldogs up against St Kilda. We saw the Saints fan there lining up for their drive-in viewing of tonight's match, and they'd certainly be happy with the result as it's being played at the moment. The Saints currently up by a whole lot. We'll take the score now. They're up by 40 points at three-quarter time, Crawf. The Dogs, top four, quite early in the season.
Well, what's going to happen after this match, if it continues the way the Saints are going, which it will, I've been watching a little bit of it, and the run and carry and just the link is just fantastic to watch. And they did play North Melbourne in round one, so that form line's holding up fairly well. But that's going to put the Bulldogs on the bottom of the ladder. So 2 losses, a low percentage, it's going to make it really hard to work their way up the ladder. And the Saints, is this the new Saints? You know, you got Brad Hill zipping around and you got lots of new players in there. Some of the, you know, King up forward. It's a really good combination. Brett Ratton, first year of really moulding the side the way he wants it. You got Jared Roughhead helping there in the forward line. So a lot of really good signs, and the energy. The Jacks are up and about, using the ball really well, and there's positive signs for the Saints.
The Dogs, on the other hand, we touched on the hype there was. Do you think they drank some of their own bathwater in the pre-season?
Well, after round one against Collingwood, they didn't produce anything, and then all of a sudden the Saints have come out and gone whack when they've had, obviously, a lot of time to really evaluate where they went wrong in their first game. So, yeah, a lot of soul-searching. They're sort of in the area of Adelaide at the moment, 2 sides who are under enormous pressure to produce some goods. I think they can get going. I think if I had to pick a side to coach, I'd be choosing the Bulldogs ahead of Adelaide. But at the moment, they're not producing what we expect them to, and they've got to go back to the drawing board.
Will be really interesting to see later tonight Luke Beveridge's response and the response from the Dogs. Now 2 losses, it looks like, and 2 big losses, of course, having been defeated by Collingwood in round 1. Well, that match completes round 2. Footy's restart. It finally arrived, Crawford. Great to have footy back, and thanks for your company tonight on what will be a weekly program here, full-time, brought to you by AIA Vitality.
Yeah, and hopefully by the end of the year, we're sitting on a couch in our pyjamas talking about a bit of footy.
I've got to get that out of my head right now, Crawford. Thanks for your time, and we'll catch you again next week.